You know what I've realized? It is late August, and my college life returns in about a week or so, but in spite of that, I would like to revisit an adventure that embodies that summer spirit we all know and love. And to do that, we're going to have to dive into Super Mario Sunshine. Now, there are two types of fans that have played this game. There are those who love self-torture and those who hate this. I like self-torture, and I was pretty delighted to realize that there's actually a mod of Super Mario Sunshine called Super Mario Sunburn by EpicWade123, and it pretty much improves upon the foundation of Sunshine and smoothens out the experience a bit. So today we're going to be going over some of those enhancements, as well as reviewing base Sunshine, what I appreciate about it, what I dislike about it. But without further ado, let's go. Number 1, Open World. Every major location is available from the beginning, including segments within levels like Bianco Hills and Rico Harbor that allow you to instantly warp between them without the need for accessing them in Delfino Plaza. Couple this with being able to secure shines out of order and not getting booted out of levels upon collecting one, and you've got the recipe for a game that permits sequence breaking and player choice in terms of progression. For example, usually after finishing Bianco Hills' first mission, you'd get kicked out, forced to retread ground and make your way back up to the PD Piranha fight, but here you can tackle them back to back without any extra hassle. This change alone underscores a much less tedious experience. You'd honestly be surprised how much fluidity comes from the gameplay loop with this one seemingly minor change, but it cuts down the runtime of Sunshine by margins. Some level assets obviously have to be loaded in specific missions though, such as the Wiggler in Gelato Beach that falls off the Sandbird's tower in episode 2 that can only be fought as a boss in episode 3, but if this ever happens, hold Z while exiting a level for a free warp back to the mission select screen. Health bar on Shadow Mario. Minute, but it grants you extra reassurance in knowing how long you have to go before the mission is finished. Skippable cutscenes are always welcome additions. On repeat playthroughs, having to put down my controller to rewatch content breaks the flow of the gameplay. No pop-ups upon collecting blue coins. Implementation of the long jump, an extra movement option that adds yet another layer of pleasure to an already brilliant toolkit. The choice between Corona Mountain being unlocked from 70 shines or Shadow Mario. In the original game, you'd need to complete episode 7 of each world to unlock the final one, but if one opts for the 70 shine patch, no longer are they forced to complete the terrible levels like Secret of the Village Underside or Ely Mouth's Dentist. In fact, given the sequence breaking I mentioned earlier, you can essentially collect whichever shines in whatever order you want since the structure of Sunburn isn't rigid like Sunshine. There are exceptions like Serena Beach where I found that I had no choice but to finish missions in order to unlock the subsequent ones, but for the most part, I was free to advance as I saw fit, gathering shines from levels that were the least likely to give me skin cancer. Plenty more changes occupy this mod, but for the sake of a reasonable video length, I won't detail them all. Kudos to the devs for creating what is in essence the definitive way to explore Delfino Isle, an augmentation of the original game that included seemingly small changes, but when compiled, makes for a flexible experience and far more satisfying progression. Diving into the base game of Sunshine itself, its most prevalent quality lies in the free flow of its movement, which can be attributed to FLUDD, the main gimmick. The best element about this dowsing device is that it acts as a fail-safe mechanism in a game where blunders in platforming are commonplace, even brutally punished at that. FLUDD can assist recoveries if you overshoot a jump, boost vertical/horizontal distance when you find yourself coming up short, or maintain suspension in midair to avoid taking damage from a hazard lingering beneath Mario. FLUDD's design as a whole creates a much wider margin of error when it comes to hopping from structure to structure, and when you combine this with maneuvers like the spin jump among others, the ordinary, slower pathways can be avoided in favor of the more skillful, execution-heavy shortcuts. The FLUDD mechanic skyrockets Sunshine to a pedestal above all the other 3D Marios in terms of maneuverability. 64 was solid, Galaxies have a floatier, less execution-heavy focus meant to complement the spatial atmosphere, 3D Land and 3D World follow the stiffer motions of 2D Mario, and Odyssey comes in at a close second because Cappy throwing is too choppy to feel as fluid to me. Furthermore, Delfino Plaza is easily the best hub world we've gotten as its design lends itself to explore the most of Mario's abilities. It's crafted in a way that there are vertical layers and a plethora of houses and towers that are available to leap across, however enough capacity is provided on the ground level to dash through if it tickles your fancy. Dofino Plaza is a playground for player experimentation as it allows you to test out various nozzles and tricks without the higher levels of danger rooted in enemies, pitfalls, or obstacles. Not to mention the sheer amount of shine sprites as accolades for letting the player's curiosity drive them in exploding to the top of a bell tower or propelling around civilians at top speed breaking down doors. Ignoring how questionably designed half of the Delfino Plaza exclusive missions are, I found that the hub world was rich in well thought out placements far more enjoyable to peruse than the castle or common observatory. Don't get me wrong, I love both, but the castle failed to scratch as much as Delfino Plaza in terms of hidden content, and the Comet Observatory is atmospherically fantastic in terms of the progressive lighting and instrumentation that increases alongside Grand Stars, but it's lacking in terms of compelling secrets and how it allows players to unpack the mechanics of the game. The various pieces that construct Delfino Isle's world have always managed to impart a lighthearted, laid-back energy that puts me at ease while I'm playing. Although sections on these clusters of islands are divided, they make sense when placed together in the context of a summer vacation, and honestly they're all amazing. There's an archaic charm derived from Bianco Village's windmills and hilly geography, or how about the more industrial focus of Rico Harbor's boats, cranes, and construction, clearly a storage site that imports and exports resources for the Piantas. Pinna Park is home to a jolly setting housing bright colors, roller coasters, and merry-go-rounds among other attractions. Or how about the tribal emphasis of Piantas living beside mushrooms and giant palm trees, taming chain chomps and growing fruits? Overall, Sunshine's universe is a thing of beauty, and there is not a single major location that I don't vividly remember from it because A, the attention to detail in fleshing out their respective concepts, B, we spend enough time exploring different segments of these worlds for them to leave a tangible impact, and C, there's always a captivating vibe taken from the ambiance and the music that you can attach to your image of each fragment of Delfino Isle's arrangement. The fact that from Rico Harbor we can veer off and spot Pinna Park in the distance is huge because it's accurate to the physical features of the actual map, as well as making Sunshine's carefree vacation setting feel leagues more authentic as a whole. I briefly mentioned ambiance, and I wanted to expand on that a little. Beyond the tropical outlook, I think the bestiary is another component that grants a peculiar kind of tone to the game. To put it short, every enemy in Sunshine looks stupid, but is that a bad thing? Of course not. In fact, I'd say that the arbitrary enemy design makes the game stand out more. We've got standard Mario enemies like the Bob-ombs, Boos, and Koopas, except they're redesigned to enhance the goofier nature of Sunshine. Take a look at Cataquacks, Clambers, Stews, and tell me the developers weren't laughing their asses off crafting these. These zany creatures are a part of what makes the entire getaway hilarious to me. Like, what the hell are these even supposed to be? Why did they steal Mario's hat? Why does Mario take damage from this? Nothing makes sense. Yet I'm not even trying to search for answers at this point because I'm far too busy laughing at what inspired these eccentric concepts. The soundtrack too, it's the juxtaposition coming from the peaceful and relaxing tracks playing on the most stressful levels that does it for me, or even the acid trip of a song that is the blooper writing theme. All of it is just too funny, and surprisingly enough, when I do lose a life to one of Sunshine's 5,000 glitches or bullshit stages, I can't seem to stay angry at the game. However, make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, the level design, regardless of my uncanny sense of humor, is easily the most offensive part of this 3D Mario adventure, and it exacerbates all of the major issues Sunshine has that diminish its quality. It's important to note that Sunshine is admittedly a rushed and quite buggy product. More often than not, you'll come across a mishap that ends up screwing you over. Whether it's phasing through objects, awkward collision detection, slippery physics, or whatever the hell is going on here, the gameplay is afflicted by a blatant lack of polish all around, and when you have brutally difficult missions that punish you via death for small mistakes, it can culminate into a tedious experience. A baffling idea is their consistency in taking FLUDD away from the player. I can understand why people might like these missions for the added challenge, but I dislike them because, well, this is stripping away an essential piece of the gameplay that finished Mario's moveset. In 64, Mario alone had snappier burst options like the long jump alongside what felt like faster run speed, but Sunshine Mario feels incomplete and clunky without FLUDD, contrary to how satisfying it was having FLUDD. The equivalent of this would be removing Galaxy's spin attack, or how Persona 5 Royal abolishes all-out attacks in that Spaceport Palace Ruler fight. You know, I'm not really a fan of temporarily deleting core gameplay mechanics unless it's part of a scripted boss sequence or justified story event. Unlike Sunshine, where it resembles artificial difficulty spikes that are more rigid than reasonably challenging, they remove depth from the mechanics, the kind you were conditioned to learn and innovate upon in more ways than one throughout the game, and such restrictively designed missions occur far too often to pass off as a minor gripe. A lot of the levels displayed are okay, and I noticed that they'd become gradually easier after every subsequent playthrough, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a handful of missions I actively detested returning to that bring the game down. Pinna Park Episode 8. Constantly disoriented and inverted aim as you target 20 balloons under a time limit, not to mention having limited ammo per lap that is handed to you at specific points on the track rather than being readily available at all times. Pachinko. Incredibly buggy physics during a red coin hunt where the slightest of mistakes either wastes your time as you try to recover or resets all your progress. Serena Beach. Backtracking and all the extra steps to find food for Yoshi. RNG time wasting for the slots, attempting to flip tiles while water is spraying in all directions, touching pieces that are already in place. RNG time wasting again. Haphazard time limits on a red coin hunt and beach cleanup because we need a lazy way to make these levels harder, right? Serena Beach is the worst road in the game, I'm sorry. Lily Pad. The pain required to even get to this disgusting level made me not even want to get footage for it. Chucksters. Talk to NPCs at a fixed angle at a specific time and they'll throw you? Which is already an abnormal mechanic made even more tedious with the pitfalls everywhere. At least they're generous enough to give you 1-ups despite chuckling to themselves while making this. And I'm ambivalent towards the Shadow Mario missions, where expansive layouts like Pianta Village and Bianco Hills where there's far more open ground to cover, they're fine. But in the more intricately structured worlds such as Noki Bay's vertical climb of smaller platforms, or Hotel Delfino's cramped floors, I get the sense that these areas were not initially designed with chase sequences in mind, rather they were tacked on. You kinda understand by this point. Overall, I think that during the development phase they were too overzealous in usurping the impact that Super Mario 64 had on the gaming industry, and blended together a mix of insanely varying mission structures without properly thinking things through or even playtesting them. A good chunk of these are odd or feel out of place, especially when put within the context of a platformer, you know? As much as I adore Sunshine, I finish all my runs at near the minimum amount of shines possible because I don't have the patience to sit through the awful levels or, God forbid, hundreds of filler blue coins obtained via the most obscure and monotonous methods imaginable. Beyond the floodless missions, I actually think Bianco Hills, Rico Harbor, and Gelato Beach are solid, though every other world had at least one level that I groaned in active discomfort while indulging in. So yeah, that's pretty much Super Mario Sunshine. It's got a beautiful tropical atmosphere completed by cohesively designed worlds, quirky enemies and music, and there's a lot of room for player expression in terms of movement. But it's because of it being mechanically rough around the edges, glitchy, and the controversial level design that it can be very frustrating to play. Even still though, I adore Sunshine because it has an exuberant kind of energy and wackiness that I haven't seen in another 3D Mario to the same extent, you know? With a bit more time, polish, and playtesting, I really think this game could have been great. I don't think it's bad, but at the same time, I don't think it's good either. I'd give it a 6 out of 10, around the mediocre range, and if I'm being honest, I'm being generous. But I do think that Sunshine has powerful qualities and a powerful vision behind it amidst all the egregious design choices. And even the Sunburn mod permits a lot of fluidity in terms of player progression and smoothing out the experience a bit to make it a bit more tolerable. Just remember that it doesn't really matter if a game is good or bad factually or how other people feel about it. It's about what it means to you, and even though Sunshine has a shit ton of problems, I don't really care. You can still enjoy it for what it is, and even on its worst days, Sunshine means the world to me.